Hi guys, I've had another one of my dreams and I do think it's prophetic. Now on Monday, July 18th, 2022, as I was waking up in the morning or just before I woke up, I had a dream, and in the dream a voice said this. It said, "The last week of freedom," and that was the end of the dream. Well, that certainly woke me up. I thought, the last week of freedom, that does not sound good. That sounds very ominous. And the first thing I thought of was, well, maybe it's for me personally. Maybe I'm going to be in jail. That'd certainly take away my freedom. That'd be my last week of freedom. If you drive a car and you smash it up, you could, end up dead. That's your last week of freedom. Or you could end up in the hospital paralyzed. That's your last week of freedom. So after I got over my own personal thinking about it for myself personally, I thought, well, maybe it's not me personally. This could be to do with our freedom as a country, because I live in Canada. Or it could be to do with freedom for the whole globe or United States. I mean, I listen to the United States news just as much as I do, even more than the Canadian news, actually. So I've been praying about it all week. What does this mean? I have not actually come up with a conclusion, because I haven't come up with a conclusion. I believe God gives us this guidance for us to seek Him. He likes us to seek Him. So He gives you just a little carrot and He wants you to go further with it. And also He wants us to pray about it. So let's hope that we can pray about this and have it go away. The things that I was praying and I saw various things, and I don't know what they mean, but these are the kind of the visions or the concepts that came to me when I was praying. And one of the things that I saw a lot of hands playing the game of trouble. I don't know if you know what the game of trouble is, but it's like there's a bubble and you push it and you go around the board. And for me, that's a symbol in visions and dreams that means exactly what you might think, trouble. So that's what I saw. A lot of hands playing the game of trouble, which would be our politicians, our leaders, world leaders, let's say, playing the game of trouble. Another thing that I saw the Canadian flag. I saw it being taken down. I saw it being crumpled. And then it was folded, and then it was thrown in a fire and burned. That's an ominous vision. But that sounds to me like communism taking over democracy, the Canadian flag. And of course, there's a lot of people now feeling bad about our country. There's a whole plot in the media to make people feel bad about, well, not just in Canada, but every country in the world. They hate nationalism. These globalists want you to be a globalist, not a nationalist. They don't want you to see yourself as a Canadian or an American or a member of any country. They want you to be a globalist, just a person in society, basically. So they don't like nationalism at all. And I do like nationalism. I am absolutely a nationalist. I want to have my own house and you live in your house, and let's not live in the same house together, because we'll probably fight and if we don't kill each other, because there's a lot of differences among people and cultures. You don't just ram them all together. They live peacefully. It's like when a warring couple, a couple that's married, they're fighting, they're angry, they're even hitting each other and abusing each other. There's peace once they get far away from each other. Once they get separated and far away, they both have peace. So I believe in a lot of separation to keep us from ourselves. But that's another video. Okay, now another thing I saw, which I don't know what it means. I saw a falls, like a river with a falls. And I saw water rising and rising until finally the water that was rising was higher than the falls, and the falls disappeared. There was just water, flowing water. Okay, and another one, I saw Jesus on a cross suffering. And I knew this meant persecution of Christians on the way. That's what I felt when I saw that. And then I saw like visions of dark ages, the dark ages. We're going back into medieval dark ages in some way. Repression, control, or worse. I saw like a medieval woman's dress, a woman dressed in a medieval outfit. And I saw like one of those Dutch hats with the flappers. It's like a hat that they wore back then. So Dark Ages. To me, that was all Dark Ages, back to the time of repression when you didn't know anything because you were just in a little isolated place and you could be manipulated. That's what that kind of represents to me. And actually, one of the first things I saw was a peace sign. I saw somebody with their hand make a peace sign. And then I saw a crumpled piece of paper being thrown into the garbage. And I thought, ooh, peace is being crumpled up and thrown in the garbage. That does not sound good. I also saw helicopters going over. I saw planes flying over. I also saw a warship on the ocean, which also does not sound good. I also saw a map of the world, and I saw one particular country, and there was a bunch of hands jabbed a knife into that country and practically stabbed the whole area of the map of that country. So it sounds like maybe something is going to start in one country where they're going to turn their attentions, which could spread out to the whole world. world. I actually also saw a vision of the Statue of Liberty, and the Statue of Liberty was hot. It was like being heated up by hot heat, which could be a nuclear bomb or a suitcase bomb in New York City, or the Liberty being attached. It could be symbolic. You have to remember things usually are symbolic, so it could just simply be symbolic of freedom. I mean, it was the last week of freedom that was in my dream. So Statue of Liberty does represent freedom, and it was the Statue of Liberty was hot. A lot of heat being applied to the Statue of Liberty. Okay, another thing I saw was like a toilet plunger, and I saw someone pushing something crappy through. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's crappy legislation being pushed through. But then I also thought, well, maybe it's good for crappy things to be pushed through, so maybe it was good legislation in that case, but still that's not something that would be our last week of freedom or cause our last week of freedom. So I assumed the opposite was true. It was something crappy. They're trying to push something crappy through. Okay, now what else did I see? Okay, Arkansas. I don't know what Arkansas has to do with anything, but I saw a vision of a map of, I think it was the United States, but whatever I saw, whether it was a country or it looked sort of like the shape of Arkansas, but longer. Like Arkansas kind of is flat on the one side and then it kind of dips in on the other side. Like if it was a rectangle, the one side is kind of dipped in, the other side is straight, but it was bigger than Arkansas. So maybe if you combined Arkansas and whatever state is below, it would be more like it. I also saw God's hand pointing. There was a rocket launch, and it was like in a movie theater. There was a plane. I'm not remembering this vision very well, but it was all part of the same thing. The movie theater, the plane, the rocket launch, God's hands pointing. And I believe the God's hands was pointing at the plane. And it was like watching a movie theater of what's going to happen, I guess. Maybe that's what I was doing. And there was a rocket launch. I saw a plane. So maybe a rocket from a plane. I also saw lots of endless white envelopes in boxes, like endless, tons and tons of white envelopes in a box or in boxes. Don't know what that means. Couldn't figure it at all what that could mean. Another thing I saw a white eagle flying, and I also saw a white eagle on a pedestal, and it seemed like maybe the white eagle again is freedom, or it could represent the United States because that's their symbol, white eagle. Why white eagle? I don't know. Why would a white eagle? Maybe because in the purest form it would represent freedom, righteousness. The righteousness of freedom. Maybe you have to be righteous to be free. Maybe the wickedness has taken over and the white eagle's not so white anymore. Maybe the white eagle's under attack. I also saw soldiers and police, and I saw a vision of Trudeau in the middle of all of this. And I had a dream about Trudeau. I'm going to tell you that now. It was another dream, and I believe it was prophetic. I felt like God spoke to me in the dream, and he said he was thinking about taking Trudeau out. Think of whatever that means. What does it mean to take somebody out? Well, it could mean he's going to drop dead, or it could mean he'll just be removed as leader, or he could end up in jail, which is actually, when I prayed about it, I saw him in an orange jumpsuit in jail. And this was a previous vision, but recently, after I prayed about this last week of freedom, I saw Trudeau, and he had a heavy Christian cross made of stone, like a gravestone, and he had a knife to his stomach. He had like something had knifed him in the stomach, or someone had knifed him in the stomach. And then I saw him in prison, and I saw Trudeau standing in a dark room in a dark prison cell, looking out of the bars from inside the darkness. And then I saw him in his orange jumpsuit again, and they were cutting his hair off with a razor, like literally shaving his head off, and they were not being very kind about it. They were like cutting him at the same time. And I don't know what all that means. Trudeau, if God wanted to take Trudeau out because he thinks Trudeau was an evil guy, I mean, I guess God will do it. So we pray for Trudeau's soul, that he'll get saved, his heart will be softened, his eyes will be opened, and he will get saved, because, he's at odds with God right now, and a lot of people in the world are. They don't even believe in God. I'm sure he probably doesn't even believe in God. He probably thinks anything goes, like other godless atheists. They just assume anything goes. There's no real God to watch them or to punish them when they die, or no consequences for your actions, although I don't know how anybody could think that in this world, because there's definitely consequences to your actions. You can see that people reap what they sow. What goes around comes around is not just a Christian saying. So anyway, that's the stuff I saw about the last week of freedom. So now I'll just speculate about what kind of things could happen that could end our freedom in Canada, in the United States, or in the world. And I was thinking, because I've been thinking about this intensely all week, it's a pretty ominous, horrible thing to think about, that in 1 week your freedom and everybody else's freedom could be gone. But there's a lot of things that could happen. For instance, bombs put all over the countryside, maybe in Canada. They say they have nukes, they have suitcase bombs in places all over United States ready to go. Those could go off. And if they went off, they would just declare probably martial law. You wouldn't be coming out of your house anytime soon. So there's one possibility. Number two, we have Russia. Any nuke that goes off could be blamed on Russia, or Russia could launch a nuke, or China could launch a nuke, or they could just bomb us or declare war. The world could declare war. That could be enough to put us into martial law. And martial law keeps you in your house. Number three, the dollar could collapse. That's a real good, the US dollar, the world dollar. About 3 years ago, China quit buying treasury bills from the United States. BRICS, which is a conglomerate of nations, and there's more been added, I believe, to BRICS, they've decided to not use the US dollar as the world dollar anymore. They're going to use another dollar. And Russia, just within the last month, I believe, announced they're not using the dollar anymore. That's it. So if everyone decides to use another dollar, what happens to the United States? Well, it won't be good, because if their dollar is devalued and they lose the right to just print up money to solve their problems, the Fed can't print up money anymore because that's a privilege of whoever owns the world dollar. That could be devastating. Let's say they closed all the banks. You think there wouldn't be martial law declared? People would be rioting in the streets. Their money's gone, until they transition us over to that digital dollar they're planning. It could be a rioting in the streets, and that could be an end to our freedoms, into your house you go permanently for a very long period of time. There's an oil crisis building. I've mentioned in a previous video that Biden gave 1/3 recently, within the last month. Actually, within the last couple of weeks, he gave away, I heard Tucker Carlson say it. I was saying I wasn't sure about the source or if it was true, but Tucker Carlson has access to much better research facilities than I do, and he says it's true. He gave away 1/3 of the U.S.'s reserves of oil to China. He sent it over to China. That's for U.S. in an emergency. What's he doing sending it to China? I think we're at war. When you see Biden sent $50 billion over to Ukraine to fight Russia, you don't think that U.S. is at war with Russia when they're sending that kind of money? And Trudeau sent 39 war vehicles or tanks over to, thanks Trudeau, we're now in that war. I mean, this is escalating into world war. We're already at war, aren't we? Because we're sending supplies to arm. I mean, it's just a secondhand war at this point, but that could go quite hot in a minute. By next week, we could have a hot war. And that'll put you in your house. So all these scenarios could put you in your house for a very long period of time. A pandemic, another one. There's something called Marburg, I believe it's called. And Marburg is 88% deadly and highly contagious. So that or another pandemic could put you in your house, losing all your freedoms indefinitely. Trudeau is passing a bill, C-11, which is a censorship bill. It could be possible that no Christians will be allowed to speak ever again, because he doesn't like Christians, does he? And he likes abortion, so anybody speaking against abortion, that could be considered hate speech. How they twist these things around, like how is killing babies not hate speech, but anybody who complains about it is engaging in hate speech. So much stuff is like that now. It's quite communist. That's what the communists do. So my point is, there's a lot of things that could put you in your house for a long period of time where you won't be allowed back out. So you better have some supplies. If you don't have supplies by now, you're just in a delusion, if you ask me. Maybe you don't have money. If you're in the boat like me, I don't have a lot of money to build up supplies. So I'm kind of, not ready. But I'm telling you, if you can get some supplies, get them. You might have until Monday to do it. This is the dream I had, and I'm just telling it. Now, another 2 dreams that I had, I want to tell. I know this is getting long, but these 2 dreams I've had recently, this year, this spring and summer. The first one was I was standing out in my yard of a house I used to live at, and it was a sunny, beautiful day. And all of a sudden, I had this terrible foreboding that there's something bad going to happen. And it overwhelmed me, and I began to walk very quickly to my door to get inside. But as I walked, the whole sky turned black. It was daytime, but the whole outside was getting black like night. And I just got in the door and barely got the screen door shut, and the whole outside was black. And I could see out I was in the kitchen, and I could see out the kitchen window things flying around. There was a storm, and I couldn't go outside. The next dream I had was I was in my house, and for some reason I needed to get some batteries in my dream. And I went to the door to open it, and when I opened the door, I couldn't leave because the whole house was snowed in. There was no way out. There was tons of snow. I was stuck in the house. So there's a lot of things suggesting that you may not be coming out of your house for a long period of time. I think there's going to be some really bad things happening this fall. And if you want to know how I feel about next year, I think next year is going to be one of the worst years ever. They're talking about a oil shortage this year, this fall. There could be less crops very soon with all this worldwide decision to ban nitrogen. Nitrogen is what is in the fertilizer. And of course, you have to put fertilizer on the crops. It's a necessary nutrient for crops to grow big and strong. And if you don't have it, your crops don't go big and strong, which is what happened in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka brought in this policy known nitrogen. They cut back the nitrogen and now they're starving. That country, the crops just didn't manifest like they should have if they'd had the fertilizer on it. And this nitrogen ban, it's like completely against nature. It's an essential nutrient of plants, just like carbon dioxide, or is it monoxide? Whatever. CO2. The plants grow big on CO2. They need CO2. At night, they produce oxygen, and in the day, they breathe oxygen, plants. So they take the carbon monoxide at night and convert it into oxygen, but it also makes them grow bigger. So all these things they're attacking are literally attacking the food source. And people who don't know science, which is, I guess, most people in the education system now. I mean, I've been out of the education system for decades. But I can't even imagine what they must be teaching these people, where they're cutting off their body parts. I mean, one woman was saying in her school, if she could go just by her school, the kids in her daughter's school, 25% of them had decided to go trans. 1 in 4 decided to cut off their body parts and take hormones for the rest of their life. Now, if that isn't a rebellion against the destiny God created for you, I don't know what is, because you're born a sex. If you're born a particular sex, you're a woman, you're a man, and you change that. I mean, that's that's who you are, whether you like it or not. That's who you are when you're born. And it's like your whole body. What are you going to do? Chop up your body and take hormones and do something completely unnatural and against your nature? If that's what you want to do, but to convince 25% of kids to do this just seems extremely abusive, like manipulating kids before they have a brain, because most kids don't really have a solid brain until 21. You can't think logically until science backs that up. That's why you see kids do such silly things and why they need parents to make decisions for them until they're adults. And even at 18, between 18 and 21, where people make a lot of bad decisions because a lot of them leave their parents and they still can't think clearly till they're 21. And with all the things that they're giving kids, like Ritalin, there's so many drugs and things, people aren't thinking straight anymore. So please pray about this. Please pray about the last week of freedom. It's pretty important. If we're not going to have freedom by next week, it's kind of important. So I'm making this video. No one will even listen to it because I have very few followers. And I don't know, it may not even amount to anything. So just as well if that's the case. But I really feel there's something bad coming down the turnpike. So please pray about this. Pray for our leaders to have some wisdom. Pray for the devil to be chopped off of them and not be allowed to use them anymore. Open their eyes, soften their hearts, Lord. In the name of Jesus, we ask it. So that is what I have to say about all of that. And please pray about this. And if you get any information, if God tells you something, please leave a comment in the bottom of this video so that we can all hear what God has told you, because I think God tells one person one little bit of the puzzle, tells another person another little bit of the puzzle, and when you put all the puzzle pieces together, if we all told our puzzle piece, we might know the whole picture. And there's confirmation in hearing from other people too, that if they've had the same kind of information, we know maybe it is from God if there's several people getting the same message. So please feel free to share and like this video and share it and subscribe if you would like to too. So thank you very much for listening, and have a great day and a great week. Enjoy your last week of freedom. Haha, that's not very funny, but could be the case. So have a great week. Bye.